Hello my lovely subscribers, thank you very much for joining me today. New viewers, I am very happy to have you and you're very welcome to this channel. Please stay with me to the end of this video to see how I decorated this beautiful face floral cake. Today we're working with layers of chocolate cake, applying some simple syrup to keep the cake layers moist, and onto filling and stacking this cake. So I'm just creating a border with this buttercream, just a buttercream dam-like, just so that I can put my soft chocolate buttercream filling in the cake. I created the dam because I don't want the cake to squirt out, the filling to squirt out through the sides of the cake. And yes, a chocolate cake is so much better with some crunchy, cut up bits of chocolate in the filling. So that's what I'm doing right now. My next favorite thing to pair a chocolate cake with is some homemade strawberry filling. And this cake has both of my favorite things in it. So it's going to be very, very tasty. I am applying my crumb coat and then I will let the cake chill in the refrigerator for about 10 to 15 minutes. A very thin layer of buttercream was added to the cake because I didn't want a lot of buttercream underneath this fondant. So I'm kneading and preparing the fondant to be applied onto the cake. My fondant is nicely rolled out. I'm just using a smoother to go over it and to get out any air bubbles that's on the fondant. And I'm using the blanket method to cover this cake. So just rolling the fondant out and spread it over the cake and carefully bringing down the edges and covering the sides with the fondant. When you're using this method to cover a cake, please ensure that the top of the cake and around the top edge is carefully secured, like really stuck to the cake before you start working on the side of the cake. If the fondant is not properly attached to the top of the cake and you start working on the sides, you may have the fondant ripping from the edges, and that is what you don't want to happen. Just using an X-Acto knife to carefully go around the base of my cake to remove the excess fondant. Transferring cake onto a large cake board that is covered with fondant. I am using the silicone mold to make some beautiful decorations to go around the sides of the cake. So with the silicone mold, I applied some Crisco into the mold first. This will help my decoration to be easily released from the mold. So I'm pressing the fondant into the mold very well so that all the impressions can be onto the fondant. I flip it over and I'm carefully removing it. This mold is very thin, it's not very deep actually, so this is a very delicate piece of fondant. I use some water to stick it onto the side of the cake, and I will go ahead now and make a few more to go all around the side of the cake. I'm going around the base of the cake with this beautiful lavender ribbon. This will blend in very well with the design of the cake, as I'm going to be adding some beautiful flowers to the top of it. In this piping bag, I have some melted chocolate. So it's a bit of a chocolate ganache, but it's very thin and it's able to make design on the cake and not be too runny. It's not too runny and it's not too hard, so I can basically draw with it on the cake. This was the hardest part of the cake. I made so many mistakes. As you can see in the beginning of using this bag, I had to put it on the cake and then use some paper towels to carefully clean it off as best as I could. As you can see, that's a black color being applied to a white fondant cake. Unfortunately, a lot of this part of the cake was not caught on camera. That's how frustrated I got while doing this cake. However, as you will see in the end, it was all worth it and I was very happy with how it turned out. So right now I'm just going over the chocolate with a spatula just to make it a bit smooth. And my face is partially complete. As I mentioned earlier, I'm just going around the base of the large cake board with another strip of this lavender ribbon. I am preparing the fresh flowers that I will be inserting into the cake. When you're using fresh flowers in your cakes, you have to be sure to not let the stem of the flower come in direct contact with the cake. A perfect thing to use here would have been some florist tape. However, I did not have any on hand, so I'm just using some baking paper, wrapping it around the base of the cake, and I'm using some milkshake straws to push over the paper and create a pointy end with the straw so I can carefully insert it into the cake and the stem will not be in contact with my cake. This part of decorating this cake was very fun for me. I just play around, and as you can see there, I'm looking at a picture inspiration on my phone and I'm just carefully inserting the flowers into the top of the cake. That is so beautiful. After all the stress I went through with putting that face onto the cake, I was very pleased with this. However, it's still not finished. So I'm going to be making a lip, the red cherry lips for my beautiful cake. After 3 attempts, I'm finally happy with the shape of the lip. So I use some water to secure it onto the fondant and just using this fondant tool to make that little indent in the lip to separate it a bit. Even though I don't think I will ever recreate this design, I was very happy with how it turned out, and the birthday celebrant was super excited, and that makes me so happy. That is the finished cake. Thank you very much for staying with me to the end of this video. Please ask your questions in the comment section. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Until next time, keep on baking.